What's up? What's up? Welcome to the Default Settings podcast. My name is Gabe Pluguez. I'm the founder of a company called defaultkings.com. And since 2019, we have coached over 700 plus men to lose fat, and we coach them on how to lose it sustainably. And the reason for this podcast is because one of the things that I discovered just through my coaching is that really what causes people to have certain default actions that lead to certain results are their default settings, their thought patterns, their beliefs, the identities, what they agree with. And the goal of this podcast is to hopefully help uncover some of those things so that we can change our default settings, change our default actions, get different results in any area of life, and ultimately experience the blessings that God has for us, be who God made us to be, because I think that's what glorifies Him, and that ultimately serves His people as well. And so for episode two, this one is a doozy. Okay. This is actually going to be an excerpt of a coaching call. And this is a coaching call I had with some of my clients who were not just thinking about, okay, how can I build belief and come into agreement with the fact that God actually made me disciplined and made me the person who can lose the weight and get to my ideal body weight, but how can I then keep it off? So this is a powerful show to listen to if you're somebody who is struggling with belief that what you desire, what you believe God has for you is even possible. Like if you have a goal and you're not even sure if it's possible, whether that's in weight, whether that's in relationships, whether that's in any other area of life, business. And this is also really for you if you have kind of been on the mountaintop before and then fallen off. That is sometimes the hardest thing to deal with. That's something that I dealt with in 2023 in the area of business. It's something I've dealt with as well in the area of relationships. And it's something a lot of my clients deal with in the area of their health and fitness. They lose a bunch of weight and they gain it all back. I've had guys who have lost 100 plus pounds and gained 100 plus back. So if that's you, or you just want to understand a little bit deeper, like what does God actually command us to do in order to be able to have the faith to take the actions that lead to the victory before we've seen the victory, then this is the podcast to watch. So without further ado, I'm going to clip you guys in and enjoy the episode.
Yeah. If we look at these two verses, first off, 2 Corinthians 5:7, for we live by faith, not by sight. This to me, this is when we hear like being in the church world, growing up in the church like all the time, right? You guys have probably both heard this before, I imagine.
Mhm.
Yeah. And same thing, heard it all the time. And for some reason, maybe it's because I heard it so often, I kind of thought that all this meant was that, I believe in God, you know, even though there's no like, I guess, physical evidence of him. Like I live by faith. I believe in God, and that's what I live on. And that's great. And this definitely means that in a way, for sure. But when we moved into this place, my wife bought this little like cross decoration from Home Goods, and it has this verse on it. She hung it up somewhere, and I read it, and it hit me different than it ever hit me before, because I was kind of thinking about this anyway, but it hit me in the sense that when we're thinking about our goals, we're always thinking about something in the future that we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen it yet, right? We actually can't physically see it, right? We can't physically see it, and we haven't seen it yet. But we have faith that we will be able to get to that goal, right? We have belief in something that's unseen. The Bible does define faith as belief in the things unseen. Belief in the things unseen. Not just belief in things, but belief specifically in the things that we can't see. That's what faith is. So if you can see it, like physically, it's not faith. Not that there's anything wrong with seeing something, right? But if you can see it, it doesn't require faith. If you can't see it, but you believe it, then it's faith. Okay. Specifically in the things we cannot see. So, for example, if somebody were to ask me, this is just a random example, hopefully to paint the picture, like, hey, Gabe, do you have faith that you can grow default kings by 10%? I'd be like, yeah, 100, like, yeah, I can grow default kings by 10%. But that doesn't require any faith because I can see like very logically the path to get there is like, do this. I can see it. That doesn't require any faith. If somebody said, "Do you think you can 100x default kings?" My answer would still be yes. I have faith that I can 100x default kings. Can I see it? Not really. I don't see exactly how that's possible. I'm sure, of course, as you grow and the next day, it becomes more clear as you walk the path. But right now, I can't see it. I don't know the logical path to 100x, but I do have faith in it. I have faith in specifically the thing I can't see. So sometimes guys will start the process and we'll talk about their ideal weight, right? Which 9 times out of 10 is much lower than they thought it really needed to be, right? And that's not just us pushing people and challenging people and being like, hey, we see more in you. And there's part of that. But that is just like scientifically, if we want to be in the best risk category for our health, as in out of risk, for anything preventable, we need to be here, right?
Mhm.
And there's some extremes there, but unless you're really like extremely muscled, you're probably going to fit in that weight range. And it's usually way lighter than people think, right? Usually way lighter than people think. And so a lot of people have struggles even imagining themselves at that weight, right? They'll say like, I can't even imagine being 155. Like, what? I haven't been that since I was married, right? Whatever it is. Or they've never been that since they were even in high school. Maybe they've been overweight their whole lives. This is actually one that's this problem is worse for people who've been overweight their whole lives. It's harder for them to overcome. When guys have been in shape before, it's a little bit easier to see it. Okay, yeah, I kind of remember what that looked like, felt like. I do know my body can get there. Maybe I don't know if it can get there now, but it has been there. Somebody who's been overweight their whole life,
Mhm.
it's hard because they're like, I was the fat kid.
Right.
Like all I've ever known is that I am the fat kid.
Mhm.
And then I was overweight as an adult and all the rest. So that's a little bit more of a challenge. Anyway, point being is that when it says we live by faith, it's not even just that like we should have faith more than, on the belief in the things unseen than just what we can see. That's true. But it's also like we live by faith, as in like the faith is what gives us life. The faith is what gives us life. And so when you say, hey, Tony, when you say, I'm visualizing that now and I'm seeing it, and that's driving me, that's what this explains here. When we're focused on the thing and we have belief in the thing unseen, that drives us. Belief in the thing unseen drives us. That gives us life, right? And so that is really like this almost in and of itself. And if you did nothing else in Default Kings or learned nothing else from Default Kings, apply this to your health and fitness and you'll sustain it forever. I want to go into something that is really important along this same like vein of seeing the goal, being able to see the vision of the goal even before you see it, or having faith in it. That I think is really important. And this comes up more so for guys when they've actually reached their ideal body weight. So there's been guys who've come through DKs who've worked with us for very long periods of time who have reached their goal body weight, right? They've reached their goal body weight. And amazing, beautiful, awesome, right? But reaching goal body weight isn't the end goal. It's not the end goal, right? There's a lot of people who've also worked with DK who they've reached their goal body weight before and they gained it all back. And that's why they're trying to work with DK to see if they'll keep it off this time, right? And so there's something very important that happens at that point because everything really shifts at that point. Your mindset really changes. And something that I've seen that kills people when they reach their goal body weight,
Mhm.
that leads to them gaining it back, is when the only thing they have had faith in and the only thing that they've visualized is getting to goal body weight. That's awesome. We need that. We need to have faith in that. We need
Mhm.
to believe it's possible to get there. But when that's the only thing that we're thinking about and focused on, it's not
Right.
enough because you will get there. And then what?
Mhm.
And then what?
Right.
Right. So I've worked with guys who have gotten there and then they have a freaking panic attack because, like, Gabe, I've been here before. This is exactly where I always gain it back. Uh-oh. Exactly where I always gain it back. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
That's a frightening thing. That's a
Uh-huh.
frightening thing. That's almost like that right there is why some people don't even start the process because they're afraid that they're just going to lose it all again and just gain it all back again. Right. Chris, welcome in, brother. Welcome in. We are ripping. So you're jumping into the deep end, my man. You're jumping into the deep end. We're just gonna keep ripping. But scary place to be. Uh-oh. All this weight's off now. I'm freaking out. Right?
Mhm.
Oh, oh, right. It's like if just random example to paint the picture. Like imagine if you anybody here shoot guns? We all shoot guns.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Okay.
watched your video and I saw your AR-15. I think AR-15 in the background. Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
it. I was
Yeah.
hoping we do that in March.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll be able to. I'll
I
talk to the
understand.
guys about it. But maybe the place we're getting has some space. It has some space. So maybe I'll just bring it out and maybe we'll see if we can get some guns out there. We'll see.
Mine transports, so
We'll see. We'll see what we can do.
all right.
Um, yeah, the place we're getting has like I think it's on 14 acres. It's really nice.
Oh wow.
We just locked it in right now. But yeah, anyway, like imagine if you had been in a firearm accident, right? And like something terrible, you'd be really scared of holding a gun again, at least for a while. Or like people who get in really bad car accidents, they're scared to drive again, right? And so if people have lost weight before, sometimes they're scared to lose it again. Not because they're afraid of what it's going to feel like when they're there, but they're afraid of the feeling of failure of experiencing that again. They're afraid of the embarrassment of gaining it back again. So sometimes guys they don't even start the process of trying to lose it again, right? Because they're afraid. Now, when you get there, you have to imagine you're no longer going to be kind of annoyed by how you look, right? Right now you look in the mirror, I still want to change this, right? It kind of pushes you a little bit. You're going to be feeling really good, looking really good, right? The newness of whoa, all this energy, that's not going to be as new. It's just going to be your normal. It's going to be way better than where you were, but it's just going to be your normal, right? And at that point, if you haven't visualized and built belief in and thought about actually keeping the weight off,
Mhm.
then you've got a lot more work to do.
Mhm.
A lot of guys only think they imagine like they're thinking about and they're dreaming about when the scale finally says 180, whatever it is, 155. I
Mhm.
can't wait till I get there. I can't wait till I get there. Right. And this is like human nature. This is human nature. I can't, man, single guys, young guys, single guys. I can't wait. Can't wait till I find a wife. That's all they're thinking about. That's all they're thinking about. Gosh, I can't wait till I get married. But then what happens after, right? A lot of guys get married and then they figure out they have to figure out how to be a freaking husband,
Mhm.
right? Uh-oh. Work starts now. So work's going to start when we get there, right? This is something that they talk about a lot in like business mentorship programs, stuff like that. But they're like, you want to make more money. Before you have it, you have to determine what you're going to do with it. Because what happens when you have it? We know what happens when people have money they haven't thought about what they're going to do with. That's what happens when people win the lottery. They lose it all. Same exact thing when people lose the weight and gain it all back.
Good points.
Same exact thing.
Mhm.
You haven't even thought about what you're going to do. So the point is this. Of course, think about, visualize, have belief that you can get to the ideal body weight, 1,000,000%, but also dedicate time and put in work in thinking about and visualizing and building belief in what the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of your life look like at that weight.
Mhm.
Like, okay, we get there, awesome. But how does that impact your children over the next 10 years when their dad has done this awesome weight loss journey and sustained it? How does that impact your work over the next 10 years? How does that impact your marriage over the next 10 years? Like, what are the things that you and your wife get to experience 15, 20 years from now that you wouldn't have gotten to experience if you didn't keep the weight off?
It could be just life.
It could be just life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Some guys haven't even imagined what their life is going to look like when they're 80,
Mhm.
right? Tony, you're 55, right?
Yeah.
Chris, how old are you?
64.
64?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. I wouldn't have guessed that, buddy.
Love it. But yeah, like, can we imagine like being 84 and like running?
Mhm.
No, I need to actually think about that, honestly.
There you go. Right?
Mm.
Chris, have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I have.
Awesome.
I
But
mean,
those are things we need
can't
to
do
make.
things.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I just it's the weight I was carrying and am carrying. I can't do the things I'm used to doing. So it's opening up a whole, menu of possibilities of things I can do again. I've
Yeah.
had knee issues, but I don't know if I can run the way I used to, but thinking about I have a mountain bike, so mountain bike racing,
Mhm.
those type of things.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right, like it's interesting because there's 84-year-olds who finish Tough Mudders
Mhm.
and Ironmans.
Yeah.
There are. So when they were 64, they were dreaming about doing that,
Yeah.
Mm.
right? So that's why they were able to get there.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
What's the Bible verse that says, "My young men will see visions, my old men will dream dreams." Not
Right.
that true. But wherever you're at in life,
Mhm.
are you thinking about the next 20 years and what that's going to look like when you're fit and healthy? Right?
Mhm.
And how specific and how clear we get. Like, can we imagine and just sit there and visualize tangibly crossing the finish line of a Tough Mudder or whatever race, Tough Mudder, at 85 years old?
Mhm.
Like, what would that feel like?
Mhm.
What would the crowd sound like? What would the flashing camera sound like? What are our kids and grandkids going to say? Yay, grandpa, when we cross the finish line. That's what I mean by visualizing it.
Right.
Okay. Like actually what's going to happen. What's it going to feel like? What's it going to smell like? Your feet are probably a little bit sore, maybe a little soggy in your shoes, right? The reason this is so important is because we don't actually get what we want. We get what we're familiar with. And if you haven't thought about it at all, you're not familiar with it.
Mhm.
You're not familiar with it. So a lot of guys, yeah, man, I just, they want to lose weight. That's great. And that's great. Again, that's really good. But they haven't sat there even for 30 seconds and imagine what it's going to feel like to be 84 and like actually like throw around your grandkid or great grandkid. You haven't actually sat there and thought about it. You
Mhm.
haven't felt it. The reason I think this is so important, guys, is because this this kind of brings us to the next verse here. Do both of you guys, and it's okay if not, because I didn't know this until I read this, but do you guys know the context of the story of Joshua?
The context.
Like,
Well,
I'll kind of break
no,
it
go
down.
ahead.
I'll break it down briefly. And for
Okay.
anyone, I read this 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, first time.
Mhm.
Basically, Joshua was like the guy who directly follows Moses.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
Moses, freed the people of Egypt, wandering through the desert for 40 years.
Right.
And then they get to the promised land, and Moses, he doesn't get into the promised land, but Joshua is the guy who's been mentoring under him for this whole time, basically. And Joshua is the new leader of the Hebrew people. And Joshua is going to be the one who delivers the Hebrew people out of the desert into the promised land. Okay. And so they finally get there out of 40 years of wandering through the desert. Oh my gosh, we're here. Oh, okay, we're here. Right. This is finally, the weight is off. We're at goal body weight. Whew,
Mhm.
finally. That was freaking hard. 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, however long it took to lose those 50 dang pounds. Whew, we're here. Okay. Now, when they get to the promised land, it's kind of it's kind of like it's like they almost feel like they got scammed by God because they get there and the walls of Jericho are put up around it. And they're like, what the heck? You freaking took us through 40 years of the desert just to bring us here. We can't even get in. Might as well have freaking left us. Same thing they said when they got freed from Egypt and they got scared because they were being chased. They're like, we would have rather been slaves.
Right.
And God's like, are you freaking kidding me? You'd rather be slaves, right? So this is the same thing. Like, oh, got the weight off, and then what? I have to maintain this? Oh, and we're rather just freaking died fat and happy, right? Ooh, human nature, though. They did it. We do it too. So, what does God say? Okay. Joshua, I can't remember exactly like the verse's word for it, but I'm pretty sure he's kind of upset on behalf of his people. And so the Lord gives him a command. God gives him a command. He says, "Then the Lord said to Joshua," by the way, again, context is they just got to the promised land. They can't get in. They cannot get into the promised land. It's the walls are up. It's securely barred. The verse before this, I'm just going to read it so that you guys can see it. The verse directly before this, Joshua 6:1. It says this. Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went in and out. What this means is the very thing that they had worked 40 years for,
Mhm.
they're not going to get. It's securely barred. You're not getting it. You did endure, you did do the work, but you're not getting the end result. Securely barred. No one went in or out. You're not keeping the weight off. You did the work, you lost it. Congrats. You invested the money. Congrats. You're not getting in. What the heck? Right? So, and they're not getting in. It's securely barred. It doesn't say like it was going to be tough, but there's a way. No, it says no, they're not getting in.
Mhm.
Impossible. Impossible. This is how some people think about maintaining the weight loss. Impossible. There's no way I can do it. I've done it before. I've gone to the freaking walls before. It's securely barred. There's no way to do it. I can't do it. Impossible. Okay. So that's where they're at. Now, here's what God says to Joshua when they're there. He says, "Then the Lord said to Joshua," who's probably really pissed and confused at this point, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men." When he's standing there looking at the
Right.
walls securely barred,
Mhm.
"See, I have." No, you haven't. What do you mean? They're securely barred.
Mhm.
See that I have? You haven't. And if you just keep reading, it actually like describes like that it actually does happen later. It hasn't happened yet. It has not happened yet. But God still says, "See that I have."
Mm-hmm.
So two big things. First thing is this: see. The command is see. SEE. Sit there. Close your eyes because it hasn't happened yet. You're not going to see it with your eyes.
Mhm.
Close your eyes and see, visualize, picture, imagine, have faith in the walls of Jericho falling down before it's happened.
Yeah.
Okay? Before it's happened. Now, you guys want a real kicker? You want a real kicker?
Mhm.
This one might blow your minds. The way that God works, because God is eternal, he works outside of time, this time thing that like we're constructed in, right? And so in the physical, the walls of Jericho hadn't come crumbling down. But God says that he has done it. He says, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands." See, I have.
Mhm.
So in the heavenly realm, in God's realm, he has already done it. So it is done. It is finished. The walls of Jericho have come crashing down before it's actually happened in the physical. What that means is that if you can see it,
Mhm.
it's not if you're going to lose the weight and keep it off. It's not that you might lose the weight and keep it off, but you might gain it back 10 years later. It's that you have lost the weight and kept it off. God has already done the thing in your life. It is already done right now in this moment. Because to God, there's no actual physical timeline the same way there is for us. It's all eternity. It's one moment. As soon as it's written, it's done. He knows the beginning from the end because to him, it's all one moment. So the thing that we're waiting for that we think is impossible, that yes, in this physical world we have to endure and have patience and do the work, it's already done. The battle is won. The war is won. The walls of Jericho have come crashing down. Because of who God made you to be, you already have the discipline, default actions, done the work to lose weight, keep it off, be healthy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's done. Okay. Now, of course, like I don't actually know what God's going to do the next 10, 20 years. I don't know. Like, I don't know. There could be some different plan that somehow this is all still true. It's not ever not true.
Mm-hmm.
But in this context, what our job is to do is to see that he already has delivered Jericho into our hands. He already has given us the discipline, the drive, the consistency to lose weight and keep it off. It's done. It's not something I need to strive for, not something I need to grind for. It's not something I'm reaching for. Hopefully, one day, maybe I get it. Maybe I'm disciplined enough. No, it's done. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So that's the big thing is like while we're working through this, we need to make sure that we're actually also visualizing and thinking about what the 20, 30, 50, 70 years look after we lose the weight and keep it off. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you're saying is like, after whatever the big celebration, you've had the parade and all that, but once that stuff goes away and they've swept up all the ticker tape, now you got to go to work. So yeah, you've won, but yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. And then the other thing is that like seeing it with certainty, right? It's interesting. It's like on my wall here, I have like some little post-it notes that have some Bible verses I'm focused on for the year and other things. And one of them that I have written down is there's no reality that exists in which you fail. There's no reality that exists in which you fail. That's really like to remind me to when I think about what God's made me for and what he has for me to think about it with certainty. So it's the important thing is the heart, the posture of your heart here, where it's not like he doesn't tell Joshua like, hey, like have some hope that I'm probably gonna help you. He's like, see that I have already. It's done. So it's moving from a place of like and obviously there's moments where it's like you're begging, crying out, God, please help me. Obviously, there's those moments. There's a truth to that too. But it's when you're thinking about it, it's like, I know, Lord, that you have delivered me. I know you have delivered me. I know you have given me the power to do this. It's almost asking and seeing with certainty. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And sometimes, and maybe this is not necessarily specific to you guys, but anybody else who might be listening, sometimes I'll talk to people about stuff like this, and their objection will be like, but Gabe, he hasn't. Okay, I know, I get it. Same thing. Joshua was probably thinking the same thing. I don't know. Maybe Josh had just had that perfect faith, and he was like, okay, cool, got it. But maybe I don't know. Maybe he was like, what? The walls are clearly still up, right? So some people say like, I'll talk to them about doing their journaling and writing their identities and all these things, and they're like, but Gabe, like you're asking me to write, I'm a disciplined, healthy example, and I'm not. I'm fat. I'm still undisciplined. And I'm like, I know, I know, I know, I know. Just trust me. Just write it. Because I think that if you're in that position where you can't, like, you're struggling to see it with certainty, just commit to writing it down and saying it out loud and then thinking about it and picturing it. Because when you do that, I think that, and this is more so like my observation of what I think is going on. I think that the sheer act of saying it, of imagining it, of writing it down, I think that it that strengthens our faith that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I write down a million, like a thousand times, like I am handsome. I am handsome. Like it's just a random example. I am handsome. I'll probably start to believe it at a certain point. Your
Hmm.
brain really hates cognitive dissonance, which is doing something that it doesn't, like taking an action that's out of alignment with what it believes. It hates cognitive dissonance. And so if you just commit to doing the thing, it's like your belief will almost line up with your action, right? Your belief will line up with your action. So thinking about it, saying it like that, seeing it like that. Another thing that's really, really powerful is that like sometimes we obviously like all of this goes back down to the root, right? Down to the spiritual root of all of this, right? But sometimes people only think about solving the spiritual problem with spiritual work, I guess you can say, talking about it, praying, journaling. And that obviously like that's direct, like go do that. Obviously, 100%. That's like a huge, you need to do that. But
Hmm.
another thing that people don't understand is that like the physical work can also be spiritual work. One of the best ways to strengthen your belief that you are the person who can be consistent is by being consistent.
Hmm.
You show up to the gym. Every time you show up to the gym, that is evidence to your mind that you are that person. Sometimes that's the motivation that gets me to the gym on the days I don't feel like it. Is you know what? I don't feel like it today, but I want to give my mind evidence that this is who I am. So I'm going to show up. I want to give my mind evidence that this is who I am.
Hmm.
Sometimes people will, who are upset and angry and offended by me on Twitter, they'll drop like a quote under some tweet I put that's the verse that says, I can't remember exactly what verse it is, but it says like physical training profits little, and then spiritual training profits more, something like that. I think I'm misquoting it, but it's along those lines. And my answer to that is always like, first off, it didn't say physical training doesn't profit. It didn't say it leads to poverty. It doesn't say it leads to losses. It said it profits little in compared to doing the spiritual work, obviously.
Right.
Rather have somebody know Jesus and be overweight than be super fit and not know Jesus. I know a lot of
Sure.
super fit people who are completely broken because they don't know Jesus. Um, obviously. But what we forget is that sometimes just doing the physical work can be a form of spiritual work. We had an event in Nashville um, 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, and we did this challenge where we basically, let me see if I can find a picture of it actually. We basically found this staircase. Here, I definitely have a picture of it. I'm just going to show you guys. We found this staircase at a place called Percy Warner Park. And here we go. Hold up. I have a picture. Picture for proof, I think, somewhere. Here we go. We found this staircase at a place called Percy Warner Park. And this is it right here. See the staircase? And it's like
Oh yeah.
pretty big. And what we
Yeah.
did was, how many guys? I think we had 11 guys, maybe 12 of us total. And we came to this staircase, and our challenge was every single person in attendance, every single person. I want you to imagine yourself there. Every single person in attendance. And guys, this is Default Kings event. Me and Joey are there, we're super fit, great. But some of the guys here just starting their journey, not very strong, not very fit, right? It's a Default Kings event. Some guys are further along the journey, some guys are just starting it. Some guys aren't that strong. It's fine. We show up, everybody here, don't care if you're still 275 or whatever. Everybody here is going to carry every other man up the stairs on his back. All right. Guys look at me and Joey. There's no problem. No problem for us. And it wasn't no problem for us. Of course. We're animals. We're beasts. Okay. This is what we do. We just sprint up those stairs. We fly up those stairs. No matter who's on our back. But you look at somebody who's kind of just starting, like this gentleman here. I'm not going to say who it is, even though I know he wouldn't mind. But he's in DK right now. Um, and we're like, yeah, you're doing it too. What? Yeah. So this is a picture of me where I was on his back and he's going up the stairs as fast as he can and he can't make it. He stops halfway. He falls, right? This is where I was like, thank God for waivers because somebody's gonna bust something up and we're gonna get sued. And the point I'm making is that This person in this moment, his body gave out. He didn't consciously choose to put me down. He didn't consciously choose to. He couldn't. His body gave out. Do you guys think that he stopped there, or do you guys think that he finished?
I think maybe he regrouped because of the group dynamic.
He regrouped
Yeah.
and he finished.
Mhm.
Everybody there finished. But here's how. Because when he hit this moment and his body was done, what is the only other thing that he was able to turn to for a source of strength? Body was done.
Mhm.
Well, the mental. I mean, just the belief that he could do it.
Yeah. He turned to
And the
God.
support with everybody there, I guess.
Yeah. Turn to God.
Yeah.
That's your only option. That's your only option because your body is done. Your body is done. You don't have any strength left. So, what do you like? My advice wasn't like, keep going. Pray.
Yeah.
Pray.
Mhm.
Show me how big you believe your God is. Gets up, dusts off, makes a very mean face, takes some very powerful deep breaths. I jump back on his back, everybody's screaming, cheering, of course. Makes it up the stairs. It happened with a few people. It happened with a few people, and that's why we do it.
Mhm.
Is this a good workout? No. This is so inefficient. On paper, this is no. Do a leg extension is better for your quads than this, okay?
Uh,
Don't carry people upstairs for your leg day. Like you can, I guess, if you want. Your knees are gonna be hurting though. It's not. No, it's not a good workout.
mhm.
Is it really good to train your spirit?
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. One of my friends, close friend of mine now, who's also in Default Kings, he did this, and he was one of these guys who had to call on God to be able to finish.
Hey, come and eat.
When we were walking down, yeah, I'll mute you, Tony. When we were walking down, he's breathing heavy. We just finished. We're walking down the hill. He's like, oh, man. I put my arm around him. I'm like, dude, great job, Andre. And he looks at me and he's like, Gabe, I've never felt closer to God than I do right now.
Mhm.
I was like, cool. So nobody can tell me that physical training can't also be spiritual training,
Right.
right? So one of the best things we can do, bring it down to earth, right? I love going like 30,000 feet up or like 30,000 feet down deep, right? Like get in the sky, talk principles, and then go to the depths of our souls. But like, let's bring it back to earth. Go to the gym.
Mm.
Be consistent. Push yourself. Do the rep you thought you couldn't. That will take care of a lot of this, right? So yeah, we'll wrap with that. We'll wrap with that. And I know we went a little bit over here. Um, I know we went a little bit over here. I'm going to message my next person because I have a call now, but I want to make sure I answer you guys' questions quickly if you have them. So just give me 1 second. Here, running a few behind on group call. But yeah, that's that, guys. That's not exactly what I wanted to talk about, but in some way, shape, or form, it kind of all ended up right.